The Galactic Council chamber was never quiet. It was a place of arguments, deals, and endless shouting between species that barely trusted each other. But today, the room was silent. Every eye stared at the giant hologram in the center of the chamber, a rotating black sphere, cracked and glowing faintly with red light. The Eclipser. It had been found drifting at the edge of the vortex expanse, a dead zone of space, where even light seemed to move slower. No one knew who built it, or when. Some thought it was from before the first civilizations, older than time itself. But everyone knew one thing. When it activated, it would erase stars. It's not just destroy planets, not just kill life, but wipe entire suns from existence. The Council's science teams had worked for weeks to stop it. They had studied the energy pulses, the heat signatures, and the strange shimmering patterns on its surface. The patterns. Those were the problem. They looked like writing, but not in any known language. Over 100 star systems had sent their best translators, cryptographers, and even telepaths. The results were always the same. The computers would freeze. The organic minds would collapse, bleeding from the nose and ears. No one could read the message, except maybe one person. The realization came when an insectoid diplomat from the Zakari hive pointed to the patterns and hissed. It resembles primitive markings. From Sol 3 Earth, that single word caused a stir in the chamber. Most of the galaxy barely remembered humans existed. They were newcomers to interstellar politics, their homeworld still recovering from its first contact. Few trusted them, fewer still respected them, but desperate times erased pride. Is fined. The human, the High Speaker ordered. Commander Elias Vance sat alone in a small windowless room on the station's lower levels. He wasn't here as part of the council. He wasn't a scientist, or a diplomat, or even a translator. He was a soldier, a former officer of Earth's Defense Corps, stationed here as part of a low-level security exchange program. He didn't want to be here. He hated the endless artificial air, the strange smells from alien markets, and the feeling of being surrounded by creatures who looked at him like he was a bug under glass. When the door hissed open, 2 tall Drexer guards stepped inside. They didn't speak. They just gestured for him to follow. "What now?" Elias muttered, standing up slowly. His boots clanged on the metal floor as they marched him through the twisting corridors toward the upper levels. When they entered the council chamber, the noise hit him like a wave. Hundreds of voices, some speaking, some clicking, some buzzing, rose in an overlapping storm. The guards pushed him forward until he was standing on the central platform beneath the hologram of the Eclipser. The High Speaker, a towering figure of pale crystal, leaned forward. "Commander Elias Vance of Earth," the voice rang out in perfect cold translation. "We have summoned you because your world holds knowledge that may save us all." Elias frowned. "I think you've got the wrong guy. I'm not exactly the knowledge type." The hologram shifted, zooming in on the patterns etched into the Eclipser's surface. Elias froze. The symbols, they weren't exactly letters, but they were close. His brain recognized the shapes before he even knew why. Curved lines, jagged edges, small dots in odd positions. It was messy, almost like old handwriting from history class. He stepped closer. "This looks like old Earth script." Ripple of sound went through the chamber. Dozens of eyes and other stranger sensory organs focused on him. "Can you read it?" demanded a reptilian voice from somewhere in the crowd. Elias shook his head slowly. "Not exactly. It's familiar. But it's not modern English, or any language we use today. This is older, way older." The High Speaker's crystalline face reflected the red glow of the hologram. "Older than your recorded history." "Yeah," Elias said softly. I think this is pre-Columbian era script. Maybe even older. Could be from one of Earth's first civilizations." "You will read it," the High Speaker said, as if it were a command, not a request. Elias crossed his arms. "Even if I wanted to, I'm not a historian. I'm a soldier. I can barely read my own handwriting, let alone the lights flickered." A low hum filled the chamber. On the hologram, the cracks in the Eclipser pulsed brighter. The patterns shifted slightly, rearranging themselves. A cold voice, not in words, but in pure feeling, spread through every mind in the chamber. Countdown initiated. The scientists scrambled to their stations.
Out.
The diplomats shouted into comes. Panic rippled through the air.
Elias just stood.
They're staring at the patterns as they changed. And then, something clicked. Not in his mind exactly, more like in his instincts. The way the lines curved reminded him of something his grandmother used to show him when he was a child. Strange. Hand-drawn maps of places that didn't exist anymore. And in the corners of those maps, in faded ink, were marks almost exactly like these. He could feel the room watching him, waiting for him to speak. I might be able to figure this out, he said slowly, but I'll need access to Earth's oldest archives, and I'll need them now. The high speaker's voice rang out like breaking glass. Then we will give you whatever you require, human. But remember this. If you fail, the stars themselves will die. Elias looked up at the glowing sphere, feeling the weight of a galaxy's fate pressing down on him. He had never wanted this job, but now it was his. The first code break, the meeting room of the Galactic Council, was silent. Every alien leader stared at the hologram of the Eclipser, a dark moon-sized machine drifting in space. Its surface was covered in strange, glowing symbols. Commander Elias Vance stood at the edge of the table, arms crossed. He didn't belong here. He was a soldier, not a scientist. But somehow every alien in the room was looking at him like he was the only hope left. "Commander Vance," said High Chancellor Rakoth, her long silver tendrils twitching. "You are familiar with this language?" Elias shook his head. "I've seen something like it. Not exactly the same. Close enough to make me nervous." The council leaned forward. Elias pointed at the hologram. These symbols look like old Earth scripts, stuff from thousands of years ago. Latin, Greek, maybe older. But the order's strange. It's like someone mixed languages together. The room filled with murmurs. The tall insectoid ambassador from Threx Prime tapped his claws on the table. "Your species has a primitive alphabet. Why would an ancient weapon use it?" Elias smirked. "That's the question, isn't it?" Chancellor Rakoth gestured. To the glowing screen in front of him. "You have tried every translation algorithm. Nothing works. But if you can read this, you may find the activation sequence. Or the deactivation sequence. Or I could trigger it by accident," Elias muttered. The room went still. He stepped closer to the hologram. The symbols shifted, glowing brighter as if reacting to his presence. That made his stomach tighten. "I need access to Earth's ancient history archives," Elias said. "Every record of dead languages, lost civilizations, everything." The council hesitated. "That will take time," said a reptilian minister with golden scales. "We don't have time," Elias replied. "That thing is moving toward the Orion Belt. If it gets there, millions of stars could be wiped out." The council agreed. Within hours, a massive data stream from Earth began flowing into the station. Elias sat alone in the archives chamber, staring at rows of projected symbols. His eyes burned. His mind ached. He flipped between old Earth alphabets, searching for matches. Patterns began to form. Some symbols matched ancient Phoenician. Others looked like Sanskrit. Few were almost identical to symbols carved into the ruins of a forgotten Earth city. A place history claimed was older than human civilization itself. It didn't make sense. How could a weapon built by aliens, thousands of years ago, use writing from a planet that hadn't even joined the galactic map until recently? He started reading out loud. The words were strange, twisted by the mix of languages. Light is the seed, shadow is the root. To end the darkness, find the first sun. He felt a chill. It wasn't just an activation code. It was a riddle. Before he could continue, the door hissed open. A tall, armored figure stepped inside. Captain Karoth, commander of the station's defense forces. His face was hidden behind a black visor. "You're wasting time, human," Karoth said, his voice like grinding metal. "The council should evacuate the Orion Belt now." "We're not giving up yet," Elias said without looking up. Karoth stepped closer. "If you fail, you'll kill us all." Elias met his gaze. "Then you'd better hope I don't fail." Karoth stared at him for a long moment before leaving. Elias turned back to the hologram. The more he studied it, the more he noticed something odd. Every seventh symbol was slightly brighter than the rest. He ran a quick sequence analysis. The brighter symbols spelled out a single word in Old Earth Latin, solus, sun. He leaned back, whispering to himself, "Find the first sun." A sudden alarm blared through the station. The Eclipser had changed course. It was no longer drifting toward the Orion Belt. It was coming straight toward them. The council chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Every alien eye glowing, slit, or multifaceted, was locked on Elias Vance. A single beam of pale light shone down on the center platform where he stood. It wasn't a welcoming light. It felt more like an interrogation. High Chancellor Varel leaned forward. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Commander Vance, do you understand the gravity of this?" Elias forced himself to meet her gaze. "I understand that you think a bunch of squiggles in a language nobody understands might be from Earth. That's about it." A low hiss of disapproval rolled through the chamber. Several delegates shifted in their seats. Insectoid Ambassador from Krovax clicked his mandibles. "The Eclipser is no bunch of squiggles human. It is the death of suns. Entire systems will vanish." Elias kept his tone flat. "Then maybe you should be talking to someone who actually studied languages, instead of a soldier who barely passed his history classes." But the truth was, Elias had already recognized something in the symbols, the shapes, the curves. They weren't exactly letters, but they were familiar. His gut told him they had been written by someone who thought in the same patterns as humans. "Commander Vance," Chancellor Varel said slowly, "you are the only one here who even remotely understands the base structure of these symbols. You will work with our best codebreakers, and if I say no?" Elias asked. A deep voice came from the shadows, Admiral Carrick, the reptilian war chief who had been silent until now. "Then we will watch your homeworld burn first, when the Eclipser wakes. It will be the first sun it erases." Elias froze. The room seemed to grow colder. They weren't giving him a choice. "Fine," he thought. "If this is the game, I'll play it my way." The lab was nothing like the sterile rooms back on Earth. It pulsed with alien technology consoles made of living crystal, floating data screens, and a soft background hum that felt almost like a heartbeat. 3 alien codebreakers were already there when Elias entered. One was a tall, silver-skinned being named Thurin, whose face constantly shifted like liquid metal. Another was a short, spiny creature from the Tavan systems who blinked with 4 eyes independently. The third, Elias almost mistook for a human woman until she spoke, her voice layered with 3 tones at once. Up from the projection of the symbols, "Human. You will begin with the first sequence." Elias sat down reluctantly. The projection glowed in front of him, strange spiral-like marks, slashes and dots and patterns that tugged at his memory. He remembered sitting at his grandmother's kitchen table as a boy, watching her trace something on paper. An old, nearly forgotten script, she said, came from before the modern world. He blinked. That was it. These weren't letters. They were instructions. "The order's wrong," Elias muttered.
Pass.
Thurin turned. "What? These aren't read left to right or up to down. They're read in spirals, like starting from the center and going outward." The Tavan narrowed its 4 eyes. "That is not possible. No known script. Humans used it," Elias cut in. "Not many. Mostly ceremonial. My grandmother showed me once. They rearranged the symbols on the projection. Something happened. The floating crystal at the center of the lab flared brighter, as if reacting. Theron's liquid metal face shifted in surprise. "You activated a sequence. 1 of 10. Elias stared at the light. 1 down, 9 to go. Hours turned into days. Every sequence was harder than the last. Each time Elias cracked one, the crystal in the lab pulsed brighter, and somewhere out there the Eclipser stirred. The council watched their progress. With growing tension, the weapon wasn't just waking. It was responding to the unlocking codes. By the 6th sequence, Elias noticed something chilling. "These aren't just activation codes," he told Thurin quietly. "They're coordinates. Coordinates to what? Thurn asked. Elias looked at the projection, his stomach tightening. To where each star is, to where each sun will die. And at the end of the list was Sol, Earth's sun. He realized then that solving the code might not be saving the galaxy. It might be arming the weapon completely. He sat back, his mind racing. If he stopped now, the Council might destroy him. But if he finished, Earth could be gone. And he had no idea which risk was worse. The dangerous choice. The Council's chambers were tense. Commander Elias Vance felt the weight of a galaxy's fate crushing down on him. Every time he cracked another part of the code, the Eclipser stirred closer to full power. The alien leaders watched him like hawks, waiting for him to finish the final sequences. Yet Elias knew the truth. The code wasn't just unlocking the weapon, it was arming it. If he completed the last sequences, Earth's sun would be the next to vanish. He clenched his fists, anger and fear burning in his chest. How had humans become pawns in a game they barely understood? Elias left the council room and retreated to his small quarters. The artificial light made the space feel cold and empty. He sat on the hard bench and pulled out a small holopad from his jacket. A gift from Earth before he left. Scrolling through old Earth history, he found a familiar quote from a forgotten war. Sometimes, greatest victory comes not from following orders, but from breaking them. His mind raced. Could he sabotage the code? Could he stop the weapon without destroying the station, or triggering its final blast? The door hissed open. Captain Kareth entered, his dark visor reflecting the pale lights. "You're running out of time, human," Karoth said quietly. "If you don't finish soon, the Eclipser will fire automatically." Elias looked up. "I'm thinking," Karoth stepped closer. "Thinking won't save you." Elias's jaw tightened. Maybe not. Blind obedience won't save the galaxy either. Karoth's silence said more than words. That night, Elias snuck back into the code lab. The alien codebreakers had left for their cycles of rest. He stared at the glowing symbols. The last sequences were complicated, locked behind layers of encryption that even the aliens struggled to bypass. He had an idea if he could change the order of the sequences. Just enough to confuse the weapon's activation, but not enough to make it explode. Maybe he could buy time. Hands shaking, Elias rearranged the symbols in the projection. The lab's crystal pulsed nervously, flickering with unpredictable light. Suddenly, the station's alarms blared. The Council's command center was locked down. The chamber doors sealed tight. Someone had noticed the code change. In the council room, the High Chancellor's voice boomed over the comms. "Commander Elias Vance, unauthorized code tampering detected. Explain yourself." Elias's heart pounded. He stepped onto the platform, voice steady. "I'm buying us time. The code is a trap. If I finish it as is, Earth's sun dies next. I'm not letting that happen." Murmurs of shock and anger rose. The insectoid ambassador snarled, "You risk all our lives for one planet?" Elias looked him straight in the eyes. "That one planet is home to the only species who might stop this weapon for good." A deep silence followed. Then the reptilian. War Chief Admiral Carrick stepped forward. "And prove it, human. If you're lying, we will not hesitate to end you." Elias nodded. "I will." The next days were a blur of tension. Elias worked feverishly, secretly twisting the code. While pretending to decode it properly for the Council, the Eclipser's countdown slowed, but it didn't stop. One night, as Elias stared at the shifting patterns, a sudden transmission interrupted his thoughts. It was a voice calm, low, and eerily human. "We see you, Elias Vance. You have begun the trial." The station's screens flickered. An ancient star map appeared, pointing toward a hidden part of the galaxy, a place no one had visited in thousands of years. The Council gasped. The High Chancellor said, "This is the key. To stop the Eclipser, you must travel there." Elias swallowed hard. "And if I don't return, then all stars will fall." He looked at the glowing star map and then at the cold faces of the alien leaders. There was no turning back. Commander Elias Vance stood on the bridge of the starship Resolute, staring out at the endless sea of stars. Behind him, the Galactic Council's leaders watched silently. The mission was clear. Follow the ancient star map revealed by the Eclipser's code. Its hidden place lost for thousands of years held the secret to stopping the weapon forever. Elias felt a strange mix of fear and determination. He was a soldier, trained to fight, not to explore forgotten places. But now, the fate of the galaxy rested on his shoulders. The Resolute jumped to faster than light speed, leaving behind the familiar stars of the galactic core. The ship shuddered as it entered the vortex expanse, a dangerous part of space where navigation was tricky and signals were weak. Days passed in tense silence. The crew, a mix of humans and aliens, worked tirelessly to keep the ship on course. Elias spent his time studying the star map. It showed a route through ancient wormholes and star clusters, leading to a place called the Sanctuary of Stars. Legend said the sanctuary was built by a long-lost race. The ancients who guarded powerful knowledge and weapons. No one had been there in millennia. Elias wondered why this place was connected to Earth's old writing. Why had the ancients used human script for the Eclipser's code? One evening, as Elias walked through the ship's corridors, he overheard a conversation between two alien crew members. "The humans have strange history," whispered a small, gray-skinned scientist named Lyra. "They claim their ancestors once protected the galaxy, but no one believed them." Elias smiled sadly. "Maybe it's time they start believing." Lyra looked at him with curiosity. "Do you think you will find the truth at the sanctuary?" "I don't know," Elias admitted, "but I have to try." After weeks of travel, the Resolute arrived at the edge of a nebula shimmering with violet light. The star map pointed to a massive structure hidden inside an enormous ring of stone and metal, floating silently in space. The Sanctuary of Stars. Elias gathered his team for the landing. The airlock hissed as they entered the ancient station. Inside, vast halls stretched into darkness, lit by soft glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The air smelled of dust and forgotten secrets. As they explored, Elias found walls covered in murals, stories told in the same ancient Earth writing from the Eclipser's code. One mural showed a great war between the ancients and a shadowy enemy called the Voidborn, creatures of darkness that could swallow whole stars. Another showed a bright figure, a warrior holding a sword of light, standing between the stars and the Voidborn. Elias's heart pounded. The figure looked human. Deep inside the sanctuary, Elias found a chamber with a pedestal. On it lay a glowing orb pulsing with energy. Lyra stepped forward. "This must be the power source for the Eclipser." Elias reached out, and the orb responded to his touch. Images flooded his mind, battles, sacrifices, a promise to protect the galaxy at any cost. He understood now. Humans were not just latecomers to the galaxy. Their ancestors had built the first line of defense against the Voidborn, and the Eclipser was meant to stop the darkness, not spread it. But the orb showed a warning too. The weapon had been corrupted, twisted by time and neglect. It could only be stopped by someone who understood the old code, someone with the courage to face the Voidborn if they returned. Elias looked at his crew. "We have a choice. We can shut down the weapon now, but if the Voidborn come back, nothing will stop them." A heavy silence filled the chamber. Lyra broke it softly. "Then we must be ready." Elias nodded. The galaxy needed a protector. And now that protector was him. The final test commander, Elias Vance, stood before the glowing orb in the heart of the Sanctuary of Stars. The air was thick with silence, the kind that felt like the calm before a storm. He had uncovered the truth. Humans were not just newcomers, but ancient guardians. Their ancestors had created the Eclipser to fight the Voidborn, terrible creatures that could consume whole stars and darken the galaxy forever. But something had gone wrong. The weapon had been corrupted, and now it threatened all life. Elias's mind raced. How could he stop it? Suddenly, the orb pulsed brighter. A voice echoed in his head, deep, old, and filled with power. "Only the worthy may wield the power to end the Voidborn." "Oh, are you ready to face the darkness?" Elias swallowed hard. "Don't have a choice." The chamber walls began to shimmer and dissolve. revealing a vast battlefield. Shadowy figures moved through the darkness, the Voidborn, returning from the edge of space. Lias felt fear, but also something stronger, determination. He raised his hand in the orb, released a beam of light. The shadows recoiled, screaming silently as the light burned through them. But the Voidborn were many. They surged forward like a black tide, trying to overwhelm him. Elias fought with every ounce of strength, guided by visions of his ancestors. The weapon in his hands was strange and heavy, a mix of ancient Earth's technology and alien power. Each blast of light pushed the Voidborn back, but they kept coming. Behind him, his crew watched, helpless but hopeful. "Can't hold him." "Forever," Lyra said, gripping the railing. Elias looked at the orb. It was draining his energy fast. He realized the truth. To stop the Voidborn, he had to become part of the weapon. To give all his strength and will to the orb, to power the defense for generations to come. He didn't hesitate. Elias reached deep inside himself and poured his spirit into the orb. Light exploded from it, blinding and pure. The Voidborn screamed and vanished, torn apart by the power of human courage and sacrifice. When the light faded, Elias was gone. The orb floated silently, glowing softly in the empty chamber. Back on the Resolute, the crew watched the sanctuary from orbit. The station's systems hummed quietly, the threat gone. Lyra spoke softly into the comms. "Commander Vance has saved us all. Became the guardian of the sanctuary, the galaxy. Would never forget the human who turned a deadly weapon into a light of hope." And humanity's true legacy, protectors of the stars, was finally revealed.